Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with our meeting. I call this meeting of the Winthrop School Board to order. Please go ahead and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Like Lex was leading us in that. No. Okay, we'll do our roll call. We have all of our 5 board members here. Our student representatives are not here. I don't know if maybe they're busy with some sports or whatnot. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, I have 2. Joel Staunton will be presenting next week instead of this week, so we're just going to table his presentation under 4.6. And then I would like to move 9.3, the discussion of the transgender policy, up to before 9.1. And then we'll end with our executive session.
Okay. Do you want this like a 9?
Thank you.
Does everyone have that? The change? Okay. And are there any adjustments or any consideration of the minutes? Anything that you that needs to be changed? Okay, perfect. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of February 4th, 2026 as written. So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion at this time? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Okay, at this time, I'll turn the time over to Dr. Foley for the superintendent report. Oh, excuse me. With that, we are offering for item 3, public comment. So if we have any folks in the room who would like to step up or folks online, we just ask that the folks online can raise their hand and the folks in the room may step up to the podium and give us your name and location. Okay. Anyone in there? I don't have it up over here. No one raised. Good. I have the. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close our first public comment section, and we'll go ahead and have Dr. Foley give us her report.
All right. Good evening. Our next Zoom community meeting will be held tomorrow, this Thursday, February 26th at 4 p.m. Megan White and I will review the FY27 budget and answer questions from the public regarding current initiatives and topics within Winthrop Public Schools. These sessions typically last between 30 minutes and an hour, and we hope you'll be able to join us via Zoom. The wellness team hosted its first winter festival on Saturday, February the 7th from 10 to noon here at the town office. The event featured sledding and other snow-related activities, and it was wonderful to see so many of our families enjoying the day. And I'd like to thank Sam Baldwin, our nutrition director, and the wellness team for sponsoring and organizing this successful event. Our girls basketball team concluded its season with a loss to Spruce Mountain in the semifinals after defeating Wells earlier in the week in the quarterfinals. I was able to attend both games, and they were both very exciting and really showcased the team's skill, determination, and sportsmanship. It's a young team, so I'm just really expecting great things in the next couple of years. And I want to congratulate the players and coaches on a very competitive and enjoyable season. Applications for the middle school principal position will close this Friday. And then once the committee convenes next week to review the applicant pool, the interviews will be scheduled within the following couple of weeks. Since our last meeting, the Dropout Prevention Committee has met. And I'm pleased to report that we are hopeful of reaching a 90% graduation rate this year. The interventionist position that you approved in this year's budget is allowing for timely and targeted support for at-risk students. In addition, we've learned that some students who complete their HiSET during their cohort year can be coded appropriately in PowerSchool, and so they would no longer count as dropouts. This is all very positive news and is helping us to increase our graduation rate. And I'd like to thank Cam Dufour, who's here tonight as our computer technician helping with the board meeting, for identifying this while reviewing our reporting procedures. So that's all wonderful news. You're going to hear from our auditor in a little while. And at this time, we are projecting that we will end this budget year in the black. And so far, we still have not had to freeze our budget, and I hope that continues. And our continued goal is to strengthen and maintain, and I'm sure the auditor will be glad to hear this, a healthier fund balance going forward. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend the unified basketball game where our Winthrop Cook students played Lisbon. This event truly exemplifies competition rooted in mutual respect. No matter who was scoring, everyone celebrated each other's success. There will be one more exhibition game in March, and I will share the details once they are available. And so congratulations to the students and coaches on a game well played yesterday. And that concludes my report.
Does the board have any questions for Dr. Foley? No? Regarding the high set, is that, I knew that was something that the adult ed does, but when you mentioned it in your report, were you referring to high school students? So then they're categorized into graduated students rather than the dropout students?
So they do complete that through the adult ed program. And a lot of times the students that return after they have dropped out are older. But we do have some students who will drop out while they are still of what I would call high school age. And if they are able to complete their high set during that time, that they do not count against us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, seeing no questions, we'll enter into the school board chair report. We were just handed this lovely invite for the Arts and Humanities Night, so I wanted to give a shout out. It is the 4th annual Arts and Humanities Night. It's a lot of fun. It's on Wednesday, April 8th from 5 to 7:30. Erica and I checked beforehand. It is not a school board night, so we're super excited about it. Thank you for the invite. Okay, and that concludes my chair report. We'll go ahead and enter into our committee reports, starting with finance.
Finance, we did not meet. I believe we're meeting next Wednesday. Is that correct?
So,
Yes, because we have a school board meeting next Wednesday again. Yeah.
February break. Okay, thanks, Tim. Policy.
So we went over policies yesterday. We're looking at adding a couple of new policies based on new laws with the temperature standards for schools. We've got changing the child age from age of 20 up to 20, from 20 to 22. That'll be both first reads on those coming up. Looking at making a couple of changes to the death of students and staff members, and deleting some policies as well.
Thank you, Jason. And negotiations.
We do not have anything new on negotiations. We have not met since our last board meeting.
Okay, thanks, Erica. All right, item 4.5, the FY25 audit presentation by Jennifer Connors. Welcome. Yes, please. Thank you, Cameron, for setting up the mic.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm here to talk about the fiscal year 2025 audit. I believe you should have a copy of the presentation. Yes, I do see it. Okay. So we typically put this together every year. It's just a brief overview of the audit itself. It goes into the results of the audit and then an overview of the snippets of numbers from the financial statements. So I will go through this, and then if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to jump in at any time. If you turn to the second page, There's an overview of the audit results themselves, where we talk a little bit about the timing of the audit and then the opinions on the reports themselves. So the audit was, we had some pre-audit which took place on May 5th, which at that time we came and did some gathering of information and some preliminary testing. And then we came back the week of August 18th to perform the audit itself. As a result of that, we have drafted the financial statements. I will say that the financial statements are currently a draft. They cannot be issued until the entire town audit is also complete. But as of right now, they are drafted, and those would have an unmodified opinion on them, which is a clean opinion. We also have issued a draft of the report that's required under government auditing standards. And under those standards, we are required to test internal controls as they relate to financial reporting. So typically on the school department side, those would be your controls over cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll disbursements, and then controls for the activity fund accounts as well. And under those standards, this year there were no material weaknesses, which would be your highest level of a finding. A step down from that would be a significant deficiency, and we did have two significant deficiencies this year. One had to do with the high school activity fund, and then the other one had to do with school lunch bank reconciliations. And then we did have some other comments as well, which we typically do have other comments. We don't consider them to be significant matters. They're just things that we see where you can improve on certain things. I did want to point out also that in the prior year, if you were here with me last year when we did this presentation, you might remember that the school department did receive a material weakness last year related to middle school activity funds. That has been downgraded to another comment this year. So we did see progress for that this year, which is great. And then as part of the audit, we also issue a report that's required under the uniform guidance. And that specifically has to do with your federal grants, because the town does receive and spend over $750,000 in federal grants. We are required to test some of your larger grants. This year, for the school department side, we tested the school nutrition cluster, which is your school lunch program. And then on the town side, we did some testing of the ARPA funds. And for the school lunch program, we had no compliance findings and no internal control findings. So clean opinion on the school lunch program. And the next few graphs, if you go to the next page, these next graphs are an overview of the school department's general fund, which we typically do focus on the general fund because it is the largest and the most important fund for the school department. It's where your regular operations are reported. And this graph in particular shows the general fund balance over the last 5 fiscal years, and it's broken down into the different categories. Specifically, the school department has 3 categories within its fund balance. The first is non-spendable, which is a portion that is not readily available to be spent. In particular, in 2025, you had a small balance that was in prepaid expenditures. Sometimes you'll also see inventory in that balance. Next step down from that would be assigned fund balance. That is an amount that is typically internally designated for specific purposes. And the last 4 fiscal years, you have had an amount in assigned fund balance, which is typically that amount that's budgeted to be used in the next fiscal year budget. And then the last category is unassigned, and it's that portion of your fund balance that is left over after you put amounts into those other categories. So in total, over the last 5 fiscal years, fund balance has actually decreased by $515,000. However, it did increase slightly this current fiscal year. So in FY25, the general fund balance increased by about $29,000 over fiscal year 2024. So pretty close to a break-even year. And then the next few graphs we have, we have another fund balance one. On page 4, this one is the general fund unassigned fund balance as a percentage of budget, which we usually use this as a gauge as to how healthy your unassigned fund balance is. So in fiscal year 2025, unassigned fund balance was about 2.25% of the budget, which was an increase over 2024, which was 0. The reason that it was 0 in 2024 is because the school department had assigned fund balance to be used in the next fiscal year's budget, and the assigned portion actually exceeded what was left of the fund balance. So there was nothing left to be put in unassigned. As you can see, this percentage has actually varied significantly. In 2021, it was 4.2%. Then it climbed to 10.2% in 2022, went down to 5.7%, and then it's starting to slowly increase again. Now, in 2022, the state did increase the maximum amount of unassigned fund balance that can be carried forward to 9%. And in fiscal year 2025, the school department's unassigned fund balance was about $303,000. So that was well below the amount that it was allowed to carry forward. So based on the 2025 budget, the school department would actually have been allowed to carry up to $1.2 million in unassigned fund balance. And then if you do find that your unassigned fund balance does exceed the state's threshold, you are given 3 years to basically spend down that balance or come up with a plan for it. On the 5th slide, we have an overview of the general fund revenues. This is a budget to actual table. So looking at some of the larger variances, the other intergovernmental revenues were higher than budgeted due to Medicare reimbursements that were higher than anticipated. In addition, the school department received $48,000 in MLTI reimbursements that were not budgeted. Other revenues were also over budget by about $81,000, and that had to do with the receipt of miscellaneous revenues that were not budgeted. So in total, revenues actually exceeded the budget by about $163,000, which is about 1% of the budget. And then on the other side, on page 6, we have the general fund expenditures. Again, a budget to actual comparison. So other instruction was actually under budget by about $127,000. That is because athletic transportation and co-curricular stipends and supply costs were lower than anticipated. And student and staff support expenditures were also under budget, as costs related to technology equipment and software were also lower than anticipated. And in total, expenditures were under budget by about $261,000, which is about 2% of the budget. So the results of the revenues and the expenditures combined meant that your general fund balance increased. And then the last graph that we have is a comparison. This is each general fund expenditure category as a percentage of total expenditures. So we have those percentages for 2025 and then the last 2 fiscal years, so you can see how you compare from year to year, as well as we've included the statewide percentages. So you can see how you compare overall to those statewide numbers. Some of the things that jump out, there are some categories where you are higher than the state average. So student and staff support is higher, school administration and facilities are all higher. However, you do have other categories where you are a little bit lower, including regular instruction, special education instruction, career and technical education instruction, and also debt service, which is significantly lower than the average. That is it for the graphs. Does anyone have any questions about any of those?
Looks like
Nope,
none at this
pretty
time.
straightforward.
Mhm.
Okay. As I did mention, we did have a couple of significant deficiencies, so I was just going to go over those really quickly. As I mentioned, we did have one that relates to the high school activity fund, both receipts and disbursements, actually. So currently, the high school requires a disbursement voucher that is approved by the school's principal before checks are written. And the high school also has a deposit form that it uses for cash receipts, which is signed by the activity fund advisor and the school secretary. And typically, when a deposit is prepared, there's a second individual that signs off on that deposit form, basically verifying the amount of the deposit. We selected 40 disbursements from the high school to test for procedures, and 35 of those 40 disbursements did not have the approval voucher that is required. And then we also did a selection of 8 cash receipts. And of those receipts, 3 had deposit forms that had the required signatures. So 5 were missing the required signatures. And then 8 of the deposit forms were actually missing that secondary count signature. So the reason that this is a significant deficiency is because those are lined out in the high school's procedures as requirements, and those requirements were not met. And since there were so many instances in which they weren't followed, it bumped it up a little bit from an other comment to a significant deficiency. And then the other one that we had to do with the school lunch bank reconciliations. The school lunch checking account is currently reconciled by one of the school department staff. Excuse me. And then the reconciliation is reviewed and approved by the finance director. We, during our procedures, noticed that there was more than one bank reconciliation that was not signed off by the finance director. So we were not able to verify that he had actually reviewed and approved those. And the reason that this is important is because the school department staff is so small. You do have what's called segregation of duties issue. Sorry, my throat is dry. You have a segregation of duties issue. And what that means is typically where you have procedures that you try to break up and have more than one employee perform those procedures, you typically have one person that's doing a lot of those procedures. So it's really important to have those secondary reviews and approvals in place because that does improve your segregation of duties. And that was it for those. Does anyone have any questions or comments about those?
So on the high school
Yep.
issue, you're fine with our procedure. It's just that we are not following it
Correct.
carefully enough. Okay.
Yep.
So that should be an easy fix.
Should be, yes.
I have comments.
Yes.
Any questions from the board? Comments? Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate your presentation.
All right. Thank you.
What's that, Libby? Yeah. Okay. And now we'll head into item 4.6 with our Administrator FY27 budget presentations, starting first with Dr. Foley.
Right. So I'd like to remind the community and the board that we're going to hold the same community forum that we held last year from 6 to 7 on Thursday, March 19th at the high school, focused exclusively on the budget. And administrators will be available to discuss their individual budgets and answer any questions that community members may have. And this forum is really designed to allow for informal, one-on-one kind of in-depth conversations so that voters can gain a better understanding of what they'll be voting on in June. At the last board meeting, the board asked that I provide the total dollar amount represented by the slide in my presentation showing proposed cuts. So I've just passed out a sheet to each of you that breaks down those figures. And so you can see that excluding capital improvement projects, the total of those cuts is $278,903. Which if we had put all of those things into the budget, then our expenditure increase would have been well over 7%. And you also remember that Joel Stoneton did a workshop on kind of the capital improvements that are needed in our district in the near future. And if you include all of those costs, that then exceeds $3 million. And that's my update on that. And this evening, you're going to be hearing from 3 of the departments. And first up to present to you is Colleen Souza, the Interim Transportation Director. And while she's coming up, if you have any questions on this, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
I do just have the interventionist. So we currently have a half-time interventionist at the middle school, but the goal would be to have a full-time. Is that?
Yes, and I think that's true in both the middle and high school. And I think if you remember from last year, I said we really want a full-time, but the budget really couldn't support that. And so we went with the half-time, and we're learning from that. And I think you heard in my report how helpful it's been at both the schools.
Ready?
Okay, Colleen.
Good evening. In your board packet, you'll find a budget overview from each department that is presenting tonight. Article 8 represents the transportation budget. The good news is the overall budget is down a little over 16%. This reduction is primarily due to the following areas: a reduction of the transportation director's salary and benefits, workers' compensation. This rate is based on salaries. Due to reductions of positions over the past year, our salaries have been reduced, excuse me, resulting in savings. Transportation contracted services. Based on past history, we only utilized approximately $1,000 for the dumpster rental services, resulting in the savings. Overtime. This was previously double booked within wages, resulting in a savings of $32,000. Fuel. Based on past usage trends, projected savings of $20,000. Areas of increase. Equipment repair and maintenance. We are projected to exceed the current budgeted amounts due to additional maintenance needs, increase of $13,600. Transportation electricity. Electricity was not budgeted in transportation for FY26. We are currently averaging approximately $600 per month. District-wide electricity is projected to increase approximately 20%. Electric buses are now maintained between 25 to 75% charge. This is an increase of $7,200. Transportation equipment. Nothing was budgeted for FY26. This amount is based on projected equipment needs, such as radios and additional seats. Drug testing. The cost of drug testing for each of our drivers has increased and required an adjustment into the budget. As a reminder, we brought transportation back in-house during 23-24 school year. We continue to refine what is needed to operate an effective and efficient department. I would also like to remind you that we have removed the insurance coverage on the electric buses, which is contributing to additional savings. We are still waiting to hear from the EPA regarding approval to sell and dispose of those buses. In closing, I have enjoyed serving as interim transportation director and look forward to continuing to strengthen this department. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Colleen. Any questions from the board at all? Oh,
Thank you.
Wait, I did have one question.
Oh,
And it was on the percentages of the the recommendation for how much we should keep our buses charged, the electrical buses charged. I think I heard you say 25 to 75%.
Right. We were charging up to 100%.
Yeah.
And then we had a phone call with, was an EPA representative, and he suggested keeping them between 25 and 75 so we can keep the battery. So like, that's the only thing that's really worth anything in these buses. So if we let them go any further than that, it can destroy the batteries.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, thank
Okay,
you so much
thank
for
you.
presenting. Appreciate it.
So next up is Sam Baldwin, Nutrition Director.
Hello. So for fiscal year 2027, there's going to be an increase of about 5.88% in the budget. And the majority of that, about 4% of that is food costs. And then we have an increase in professional development.
Sam, do you mind if I interrupt you for a second? What line, what article,
Oh, I'm not sure.
just so we can follow along?
Sorry.
The article, the nutrition, what article are we in?
Is it?
Okay, thank you. Gotcha.
Was that its own? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to clarify that when Sam is talking about an increase, it's like within her own program, and you will see on her
Yes.
overview sheet that we currently do not contribute any money to her, and that's why you're not
Gotcha.
Correct.
seeing that.
Yes, yeah. So there's a small increase just to do some more professional development with staff and management, food safety, et cetera. And as Becky said, we're not asking for any money from the local budget. We are expecting to increase meals. I know we're projecting to have more students enrolled in our schools next year. And with that, of course, comes more meal served and more food costs as well, but more meal served, which is what we want to do. Feed the children. And that's all I have.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Sam.
Thank you.
Okay, and lastly, we have Josh Farr, the Adult Ed Director.
Good evening. Apologize if I cough a little bit. So for the upcoming year, adult education is looking at a slight reduction in our state subsidy. If you're familiar, I don't know if we've talked about adult ed budgets and how we get reimbursed from what we spent a couple years ago. So if we dip a little, it lowers what we end up getting. So it's not a huge fluctuation, $2,000, but that is close to what we're asking for additional local funding this year. We are going to continue to use some unallocated funds, which are funds when we do have done enrichment in the past and have been set aside. We can pull those in. So some years we make what we pull in that year, some years we don't, so, but it keeps the budget even. There's significant adjustments in the budget. We do share our catalog printing with, as Kennebec Neighbors, Adult Ed, we do share that with, excuse me, with MSAD 11. And this year we're doing 3 catalogs where we've traditionally done 2, but they're smaller. So just a little adjustment there, and that I think we over budgeted, but we also need access to some software for the staff in terms of being able to produce the catalog and also do some more communications. So we're talking about things like Constant Contact, Canva, and Adobe Creative Cloud. So those are some shifts. Staffing adjustments. We have, for a while, had a full-time administrative assistant. And with some consideration, reduced that, those hours to part-time, to half-time, allowing us to increase the instructors' hours, another 324, so 8 to 12 hours for another instructor, which I think will be beneficial. And in terms of assigning hourly pay for instructors, making sure that we're keeping everybody within a reasonable range for having a certification. So by making those shifts, we didn't add significantly to the budget. And we anticipate our enrollment kind of fluctuates depending upon where we're at each month sometimes. But and how you want to define enrollment for us. But the high set program consistently graduates 8 to 11 people, and we expect to continue doing that. So, yeah. So are there any questions about?
Any questions from the board at all? Did have one. You said unallocated funds for previous years are used for enrichment. Do you have plans for this year's?
So what we would basically do with what has come in over what we expended in enrichment this year, we would put it into unallocated funds in the hopes of budgeting next year. And then in some cases, we did make a push to try and get the main cabin masters to come renovate the space down there at one point, which we could have we could have come requested to use the funds for something like that. They get a lot of requests, so I'm not surprised, but so, you know, or if we need something done, like if we're gonna need to probably paint at some point down there and stuff like that, we might request to use unallocated funds for that, but otherwise we keep it there and use it each year a little bit. So.
Thank you so much, Josh. Appreciate your presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so that concludes our administrator reports or budget reports. Okay, we have no old business. And at this time, we will open up our second public comment section to any of those folks who would like to speak either online or in the room. Okay, thank you. Couldn't get into the keyboard. Oh. Thank you. Okay, seeing none, we will move ahead to school board. Well, I'm going to change that actually. Just for clarification, we had, Dr. Foley had requested an adjustment to the agenda at the beginning of our meeting, and that is to push the discussion for the policy JB up ahead of our executive session. So we're going to go ahead and begin that now, which will then also move our school board comments to the end of the meeting as well. Okay, so new business, item 9.0, our policy JB.
So at a previous meeting, the board requested that this item be placed on the agenda for further discussion. And so I spoke to Alicia yesterday and she asked that I provide a brief overview of the district's current status on this topic before you start your discussion. And so we also have here tonight our building principal and Lexi, our Title IX coordinator, in order to be here to answer and respond to any questions that you might have tonight. If there are questions that we can't answer tonight, well, we'll just research them and we have a board meeting next week and we'll report back next week to you. So in your packet tonight, you have what we have for an existing policy to address transgender students. And so it's not attached, it should be loose. And it should say JB and JBR. Am I supposed to give it to him? Okay. This is why I'm glad you're here, because I don't have them.
Want me to go get it?
Yeah. Then they also, I don't know whether we made copies of the ACAA. So sorry about that. There were a lot of papers flowing today.
Very big packet tonight.
And so I think that you probably are going to want that in front of you before we start this discussion. So do you want to do school board comments while we're waiting?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we take up some time, school board comments at this time or additions to future agendas? Okay,
All right.
well,
Well, that's good.
there's one item of business here. We are good with school board comments. Revisit that.
I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read through this and then we'll come back to any questions you have about JB. How does that sound? So we currently have an existing policy that addresses the transgender students, which is policy JB, and its regulation is JBR. The district does not currently have the more recently recommended policy, which is ACAAA, titled Transgender and Gender Expansive Students. Adoption of that, as you know from all of our policies that we've been updating, there are some that are required by law. ACAAA is not required by law. Our existing policy is aligned with our current Maine state law. Now, one of the primary distinctions really between the two policies that we currently have in the ACAAA is that the AC policy explicitly includes gender expansive students. Under our current policy of JB, parental involvement is required in the planning of any educational accommodations for a transgender student. While in contrast, the AC policy uses more flexible language in certain areas such as may rather than shall. Additionally, AC allows transgender students to use the restroom that aligns with their gender identity and specifies that they may not be required to use a single-user restroom. The policy that you now have before you, that is the JBR, addresses participation by transgender student athletes. Under this regulation, students must present their case to the Gender Equity Committee of the Maine Principals Association, demonstrating that the gender identity used at school is consistent and requesting eligibility to participate on a specific athletic team. The required steps are outlined on page 3 of JBR, if you want to take a look at that. I'm not going to read all that they have to meet with that. It starts with the MPA procedure. At this time, I am not aware of any transgender student athletes in our district. Currently, 6 students are being sued by the Maine Human Rights Commission. with the possibility of one additional district joining that I'm aware of. Each additional district added to the case delays the hearing by approximately 10 days. My understanding is that the defendant districts intend to file a motion to dismiss the case. Our district's insurance carrier is XL Indian Harbor. And based on information that I researched today from Deb Roberts at the Main School Management, there is a collective cap of $250,000 in insurance coverage for the legal defense cost across all districts involved in this lawsuit. Legal representation is being provided by either Jack Baldacci of Steve Smith's trial lawyers or Trevor Bryce of Skelton Tainer. Notably, the law firms of Drummond Woodsum and Brand and Isaacson are not representing districts in these cases. Once the $250,000 insurance limit is exhausted, each district will be responsible for any remaining legal expenses through its local budget. In addition, if the districts are unsuccessful in court, insurance will not cover any financial penalties that may be imposed. At this time, our current policy remains compliant with Maine state law. Maine law on this issue is clear and has been interpreted by the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. As you may know, there is likely to be a referendum vote on this issue in the fall. If the law changes, we would, of course, then change our policy. And that concludes my review.
Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Foley. I did want to clarify one thing. I think you meant when you said 6 students and then the.
Did I say 6 students? Instead?
6
School district.
school districts? Okay.
Thank you.
thank-
If
yeah.
I said that,
Yeah.
that was oversight. Sorry. Error.
Okay, any discussion or questions on Dr. Foley's presentation?
Are we opening discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're here for it.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. This is a very controversial, emotional topic, and it can cause a lot of conflict and anger. My opinion is I do not want a biological boy in a biological girls class bathroom or a locker room. I just think it's unsafe and it's emotional abuse to biological girls. And I think that's one topic. The other topic is sports. It's completely unfair. And we've already seen, even though it's very limited, I know in the running scene, it's a lot of I would say trauma against some girls that have trained their whole life and they just know there's absolutely nothing they can do. I know, and both 2 of my kids are okay with me speaking this. My daughter has won the state title as a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, and second as 11-year-old. She's a year and a half younger than my son, and there's absolutely nothing she can do to beat him. There's nothing. And she's one of the top athletes in the state of Maine. So I think that's just a fact. That's just not fair. Now, as far as I do believe in protection, we have bullying. We're not going to allow bullying. I'm okay with all these transgender things. We will protect students. I believe they should have a separate space to use the bathroom. We shouldn't force them to go in these bathrooms. They should have a separate place to change. They should have those protections. But we got to protect those girls. I know a lot of high school girls do not want to go into a bathroom and find a boy in there that they've known as a boy their whole career in school. That can be traumatic.
Thank you, Tim.
In looking at the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, I think it reflected, and for anybody that's not familiar, that's a survey that the CDC collects information on from schools across Maine. I think like over 300 schools are participating in it. That there's less than 4% of Maine students that are transgender. So I think rhetoric that implies that transgender students are a threat is very concerning. And what evidence is there to be concerned or make it seem like they're a threat or a predator. We're talking about children. Sir, things that come up for me.
Thank you, Libby.
Yeah, and I actually, I agree with you, pretty much. But it's that concept. I wouldn't say it's not a danger, and I hate to use that word. I don't feel like they're going to harm anybody. It's and it is a very small percent. I mean, the chances of it happening are not huge, but just a naked boy in a locker room in front of girls, it's just not. Even though I don't think they're going to harm a girl, it's just that chance that could happen and be allowed to happen is my concern.
Thank you both for speaking. I guess I'll share, for me, this is not I don't see this as a transgender issue. What I see this as is just protecting girl spaces and their own sports. This goes back to the original Title IX and the intent behind Title IX. It really is protecting and honoring those females. And so, I feel similarly to you, Tim, in that, it's a stand for them. And yes, having a child myself, who struggled with gender identity for a few years, it was not something that was easy, but I feel like I'm well equipped because I can see both sides. And so I still have, it is a principled decision for me when I think about protecting females, their spaces, their rights to play sports and fair sports. And I think fairness is huge.
We do have a duty to protect all students, though.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I want to keep that in mind as well, that school should be a place where all students feel welcomed and included. We were celebrating a win yesterday from a student that had a really hard time, but because they had trusted adults and supports in place, they were able to have a success. And I just think we're talking about 4%. So we're talking about a vulnerable population that's already put at risk because of their environment, that we should not be putting policies in place that further put them at elevated risk. And I'm not saying that we can't figure out a way for everyone to feel safe in the school. I want everyone to feel safe, but excluding individuals for simply existing is not appropriate in my mind.
Thank you, Libby. Any other board member?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to kind of suss out a little bit of kind of where we're trying to go. So I think personal opinion versus risk for the school based on going against current laws is kind of where I'm trying to weigh and figure out what the proposal would be going forward.
Yeah, I think we end up running afoul one way or the other, potentially. Right? Where you have running afoul to federal Title IX and the potential for losing federal funding versus running afoul of the Making Rights Act, potentially losing state. So I think at that point, we just kind of, I think we need to decide on which direction. Kind of addressing your concerns, Libby, is where we're looking at two sectors there where, whose rights are we going to look at? Whose rights are we going to exclude, whether we're including transgender students and allowing them to come into the girl spaces, female spaces, but at the same time, kind of excluding them and their feelings on how they feel on that, whether they're comfortable in that type of environment. Sports, I know with the sports, that's one there where even the 4% are the one too many. So you have that incident down at Freeport last year where you had that track and field act.
Yeah.
That's right there, at least one incident where you have females that did not get that opportunity to be able to become that gold medalist.
I guess I want to clarify a couple of things from just what you've said. My understanding under the current law, Jason, is that we don't risk losing federal funding by having like our current policy in place, because all of the federal funding flows through the DO. So I don't think we risk that there. And I'm also looking at, and I think I'm going to, I think we currently have JB in place. So getting to the restrooms on page 3 of 4 of our policy. It says a transgender student who expresses a need for privacy will be provided with reasonable alternative facilities or accommodations, such as using a separate stall or a staff facility. However, a student shall not be required to use a separate non-communal facility over his or her objection. I don't know whether it would be helpful for your discussion to hear from the principals how they've dealt with this in the past.
Yeah, I think so.
So Jay or Lexi, do you want to come up to address that? And then Lori, I don't know if you've had to deal with that. I feel like you have since you've been here.
So at the high school, in the past 7 years, we've had 3 transgender students, and they have been allowed to use the bathroom of the gender that they identify with. However, I will say that 2 of those 3 students, the third was not did not choose to come out as transgender until their senior year. And so I think they took it upon themselves to continue to use the bathroom of their birth sex. But the other 2 students, our policy is that students can use the bathroom of the gender that they, I would say in layman's terms, the majority of the time that they display. And so that is the bathroom that they used. In addition, though, at the high school, we do have available to students. We do have 1 single stall bathroom that's on the 2nd floor, and then the nurse's bathroom that's available on the 1st floor. And as far as locker rooms, the locker rooms that are available to all of our students are those that identify as female locker rooms, male locker rooms, and then we also have the coaches room. And so Ed Van Tassel allows that space for students who choose to use that space as well. And that might be for any reason. You know, a student might be very shy and wants to have a private changing area, and they can use that as well. Does that answer your question in regards to our bathroom policies?
Are those open to all students?
The single stall bathroom?
Yeah.
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 Yep. Same thing like the nurse's bathroom. Certain students, again, just have it maybe challenges and they want to be in private, or honestly, if we have female students who want to use the nurse's restroom when they're menstruating, then they come and use the nurse's restroom because it's more comfortable for them.
Libby, would you lean into your mic?
And have you run into any challenges with those processes in place?
We have not, and again, I'm being very upfront in the fact that it's limited, but we have not had any challenges with that. I know that when we had one student a couple of years ago who was a transgender student, and I think initially when he started using the men's room, there was about a month or so where students were kind of questioning the scenario, or, you know, there was a little bit of grumbling, but there were certainly not what I would consider a high stakes. They were kind of lower stakes. And I think because we are such a small school, that's a blessing and a curse. But everybody kind of knows everybody else's business. And so it was pretty easily squelched. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
So Principal Smale.
So we've had one student at the middle school over the last 3 years, and that individual wanted privacy and had used the nurse's bathroom. We too, same procedures as at the high school. We offer all of those things. We also have a coaches area for students to change if they choose to. Also, in our locker rooms, we have curtains for privacy as well. But at the middle school, students really like coming to the nurse's office, using that and being private versus our bathrooms at the middle school are very outdated and not really pleasant. So they, so they are afforded to come into the nurse's office or to use the coaches area. And they have all, the one individual, their parents were very supportive of that as well. And we've offered that up to all students who feel uncomfortable.
So I would ask the same question. Did you have any challenges with those processes in place?
None.
And did any students express fear or uncomfortability with those processes?
No, no fear. And I think because, as Mrs. Descolia said, we're small. So they know those trusted adults, they know who they can come to and share those concerns. And then we work through those problems. And very fortunate to be able to work with their parents as well.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? I'm kind of open to Erica, what you were saying as far as, we have policy committee who really is the one in charge of, looking at these policies. And I'm wondering if you can maybe talk about a little bit more, expand upon what you were saying.
Well, I was, I think our own personal politics or beliefs in this particular topic is a bit different than how we move about with policy for the school. Because we're balancing a whole bunch of things with our policies that we're trying to support students, all students, which means females and transgender females. But we're also trying to make sure that we don't open up the school district to unmitigated risk by changing a policy that doesn't follow the law, but it follows personal beliefs. So I'm how do we kind of move forward balancing those two things? It is a big responsibility on this board to ensure that we aren't opening up the school to legal risk by changing our policy that does not align. And in my opinion, we have to make the change at a higher level before we can make the change at this level without it potentially causing bigger issues for our entire school district.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or discussion?
I mean, I do think that either way, we either as a school, as a state, we do open ourselves up for additional risk when we're sitting there looking at the potential for hurting another student in any sort of contact type of sports, potential for any sort of misconduct within bathrooms and whatnot. I know we talk about the 4% and the numbers are rather low, but we still have that potential for, or the probability of something happening, it still could be there. And I'd hate to see, what would happen on if something were to occur. If some student was, a female student was to get hurt by a transgender student, let's say basketball or soccer, and, what could be the repercussions of that aspect on it.
Sure. I don't disagree, but that is a possibility regardless of whether or not transgender students are involved in sports, right? All sports are dangerous regardless. And we do have a female football player on the middle school team, one out of all of the boys, and she kills them. She crushes them. She's a big risk because she's the one female on an entire team, and she's got opposing teams who are all male coming after her and chasing her down the field. So it feels very low risk when we're talking such tiny numbers. Listen, my own personal beliefs may differ entirely, but I'm trying to look at it from an entire full scope, big picture on what makes the most sense at this point in time for our school district.
And if I may add, at hearing from school staff that are the individuals that are putting these processes in place after we put a policy in place, it sounds like things currently are working and that there aren't any challenges that they're facing and are not hearing from students that they feel unsafe with the current policy in place. So I would say that we are in a good place with it, and not changing it would be the best course of action.
As far as sports are concerned, I know that some schools are designating sports as male, female, or co-ed. And so that is a possible direction, as I've spoken to other board members from other districts who are supporting this. And so that is something to talk about.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to the original Title IX. There's a reason why we have boy and girl sports.
Mm.
And if we start saying there's no difference, then why just have all co-ed sports? And that's just where I'm at with the sports situation. And I think Winthrop we haven't had the problem, and this is more of a preventative. I think we just haven't had the issues here in Winthrop. I think the schools have been doing a good job. The students that we've had, it's all been appropriate. It's just been, I'm concerned that at any time, what could happen? At any time, any boy can say, decide to be biological boy can be a say that they're a girl, and they can walk in, and what do? We have no rules against that. So that's my concern.
As far as the sports, though, it sounds like they have to go through a committee, right, in order to be approved to participate in sports. So it's not like tomorrow you can decide to change your gender and join.
Oh, you can, you can't switch mid-season. You can't switch during the year, but you can come in the fall and say, and you can be on.
As long as you've gotten approval by the committee, though, right? Isn't that what we?
No, that's been the rule statewide. This is the rule statewide.
So my understanding, and I don't mind researching this more in the coming week and but you can see in our policy that you have to go before there's a subcommittee of the MPA that you have to petition in order to play that sport.
But it's always a yes. They've never denied it. The only thing they'll deny is you can't, be in the middle of a season and switch. You can't go from fall to winter, then winter to spring. I mean, you have to designate.
Yes, I do think you're right on that. I just wanted to be clear that they couldn't show up tomorrow for the,
No.
Right. They do have to do that. The other thing that I will tell you what I think I know tonight. And I know that Joel Stoneton, I think, is on the Zoom, but we could research it more. So even if our board decided to say we do not allow a trans female to play on our girls' track team, right? When we are competing against Cumberland, if they are following the state law and they have a trans female, they're going to still compete. Mm-hmm. We have the option of saying we're not going to play you because you have a trans gender student on the team, but then we're forfeiting. And there are repercussions from that. If I don't know if anybody followed the news recently, and I think Principal Dufour could speak to this about the hockey where the coach got upset and quit the game because of the calls being made by the referee. You can be, that team can be placed on probation and not be allowed to play for 2 years, is my understanding. Is that correct, Principal Dufour? So I just want you to understand, if we change our policy and saying we're not allowing any transgender athletes in our district, I mean, you could do that and we would not have any transgender athletes, but it doesn't mean we're not going to be playing against those when we go to play a game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's okay. Every district has their own rules. And I think we all know that. And I mean, we have to accept that.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be pointless for us to discriminate against transgender students because they would still be competing against transgender students.
That potentially. And, I think it gets back to your percentage of how many, right? So the incident that has had, widespread coverage about the Cumberland. I think that was in, at the Cumberland meet, right? That doesn't prevent that. Unless every district in the state of Maine changed their policy.
So I think there's for sure research to be done. I would like to see also, what are the policies that the schools who have adopted the original intent of the Title IX of protecting girls' sports in their spaces? What is the language that they're using? I did find some, which I have copies of, but like we have collected cohort data in our negotiations committee, I'm sort of wondering what that might look like compared side by side. And I know this is more policy committee. And so I think I would like to see that come across. I'd also like to see another voice maybe too from the other side who have navigated this more than we have. Like, we are a small school. We haven't navigated this sort of thing. I've heard the compromise is to have, like Eric, what you had mentioned, we have a well-known female playing on our boys football team, but is that really a boys football team, or can we like designate sports as co-ed? And maybe some of that data around that. I really think I guess I just see it a little bit differently when I think about Title IX and protecting females, their spaces and their sports and fairness. And so I think I just see things differently here. But also respect what you're saying too.
I think it's take it from a mental health perspective and looking at increased risk that this poses for the mental health of the young people that would be excluded and our suicide rates. And I encourage you, if you have not looked at the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, to take a look at that data and the amount of students that feel like they don't matter in their communities and their mental health, and how we cannot exclude further.
Yeah, thank you, Libby. Any other comments from the board or anything that, any requests for information or things for the next presentation? Might help us to kind of guide our decisions.
So you can definitely write policy.
I'm sort of looking.
So you could definitely write the policy to read however you might want it to read, and it's definitely easy enough to there are 6 districts that have done that, and so to me, if you go in that direction, then the policy committee can go back with that instruction of we want it to read this way. I think what I want to make sure that you're aware of, in those 6 districts, they are breaking state law. And so if you vote to go that way, I just need you to be aware that that's what you're doing and opening yourself up to litigation. So, but I also can find out, Lexi, I'm looking at you about whether, are we required by law to have a JB? And I know, Colleen, you have something on. I know we have access to that, and I can get you that information.
I think I know that answer because JB is not something that all schools have. JB is just something that a very small percentage of the schools have, so it's not required. I don't think any of the policies are required by law so far.
The Title IX ones are, but
Yes.
that's what I believe too.
Yep.
So you could choose just not to have a policy on this.
Yep.
And then you would not be breaking that would be your other option. But I could also if you're wanting to see how other policies read, I can definitely get you those 6 districts and send those to you beforehand so you can kind of review it. But I think the decision is, do you want to go against the main human rights?
Sure.
You need to go to the mic, please. Thank you.
It's in front of me.
So for example, Unit 73, which is like Livermore Falls, that's where I live, they voted to repeal the JB and the JBR policies. So they don't have them anymore. So that's really I think what you're talking about is not necessarily having a policy. You're talking about taking away a policy.
But did they put something else in the place? Because I know over in Turner they did, and they went with the DC something. I don't know. Because I don't know why they would be in the lawsuit if they didn't have some policy that went against state law.
Well, I think that the challenge is that depending on which side you go on, you're either going to be going against state law, and that's why the Maine Human Rights Act has filed against certain school districts. And then if you have other districts that are, I think to Tim's point, if you have a district that is having a transgender athlete play, and then somehow that can bring up litigation. It hasn't yet. There are investigations, but there's no litigation currently regarding federal Title IX. So the Maine is like the pivot point right now. Once something gets decided in Maine, I think we're going to be the example for a lot of other states in the country. There's just a lot more publicity and PR regarding because the Maine Human Rights Act is so strong for our state, that's bringing up a lot of cases. But I don't know, Becky, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm only giving you the information that I do have, which is I know that districts have taken away their JB and their JBR policies. I'm not sure where or what they would have put in its place because all the J policies are the student policies. So I would assume they'd put something else in their J section.
Well, I know in Turner in 52 that it's in the D section, so I'm happy to research that and get back to you before next week.
D, okay. Because D is usually money, but we can definitely figure it out.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think you're not, I just want to be clear on that. I don't think you're talking about creating a new policy. I think you're talking about negating a policy.
I think they're talking about both.
So I found one, it's just called Sex Separated Facilities and Programs, and that's an ACAE policy. And I just brought a copy. I didn't know if we'd discuss specific policy, specific things right now, but it's just an example that I know at least, you know. This one. And so this, is.
That's a good example of
Yeah.
where there's something that's not in the J's.
Yeah.
But I think that districts that are in the lawsuit probably have something that has been adopted that contradicts with state law. But we will research that and get back to everyone.
Yeah.
And we can, Joel is presenting next week on his budget. And so at the same time, he can help with the question of, can we designate sports as co-ed or not, or what
Yeah.
the rules around that.
Yeah.
It might be interesting. You probably have ready access to the main health survey, and it might be good to just send that out to her.
Yeah.
Anything else that people would want for the continued discussion?
And I just really appreciate the work on policy because I know that's a heavy topic. And so I just appreciate ahead of time all the work that you guys will be doing and putting into this.
Thank you.
Okay. So it sounds like that wraps up our discussion. Everyone's feeling good? Okay, perfect. Moving on to new business 9.1 to elect the following administrator.
But I think we have to do the exec.
Are we doing executive session first? Okay, that's my misunderstanding. Okay, well, at this time, we are going to enter into executive session to discuss the administrator's goals pursuant to 1 MRSA 505, 4056A. And I'll accept a motion, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, and for those who have been invited to stick around, we just ask that you do so, and then those who are can leave. And so we will enter into executive session with a vote. Okay, that's unanimous. A vote carries. Okay, at this time, the Winthrop School Board is exiting out of executive session at 7:38. And I'll entertain a motion to elect the following administrators for 2-year contracts, 2026 to 2027 and 2027 to 2028.
So moved.
Seconded.
And all those in favor? That's unanimous vote, and the vote carries. And item 9.2, entertain a motion to elect the following administrators for the 2026 to 2027 school year. That is Teresa Violet, the Winthrop Grade School Principal.
So moved.
Seconded.
Vote. Perfect. That's unanimous vote. That motion carries. And without further objection, I declare this meeting adjourned at 7:39.